My expectation of Afghanistan was a highly undeveloped place, low literacy rates. I didn't expect in the cities to see hotels. I didn't expect to be greeted by chambers of commerce and men in business suits who are doing vibrant business within their local communities.
That was U.S. Deputy Undersecretary for Defense Paul Brinkley talking about the vibrant business climate in Afghanistan. Brinkley is spearheading the U.S. government's attempt to encourage American business in Afghanistan, and that's the subject of the cover story this week. You can see it, Bloomberg Businessweek magazine. It goes on stands as of today. And we are joined right now in the newsroom by Bloomberg News reporter Jason Kelly. He traveled to Afghanistan to shadow Brinkley. Jason, this is a great piece. I mean, it's really compelling. And we just heard Brinkley talk about this vibrant business community there. I read in your article, though, where the average Afghani person is less worried about physical assault as a result of doing business than of corruption. So, I mean, it's still pretty hard to do business there.
It's extraordinarily difficult, and it's a land of contradictions, and there were a lot of surprises. The first surprise is how you get there. I got on a plane in Dubai. 3 hours later, I landed at Kabul International Airport. So it's really not that complicated? It's not complicated to get there. It's complicated to do business there, don't get me wrong. And you mentioned corruption, and it's a huge concern for people. The government, Brinkley's group, has embedded advisors within government ministries to help with that. But ultimately, like all of these things, it's up to the businesses. This comes down to a calculus of, can you make money there? Can you do business safely there?
We know that some U.S. companies have had some success in Iraq. They've gone into Iraq sort of post-conflict. I mean, Honeywell, GE, we know at least two big names, Boeing as well. So is there a template of going into war-torn areas or post-war-torn areas and trying to build up an infrastructure?
Well, this is a huge effort on the part of the Defense Department. This is done in very close conjunction with General Petraeus. I sat in with a meeting with Petraeus where he was making the pitch to these businessmen. I mean, he's very involved in this. Iraq and Afghanistan, though, are very different places. Iraq is a much larger economy. It obviously has a lot of oil that the rest of the world is very interested in. Afghanistan is a place that for 30 years has been on its knees. So it has to take different steps to get.
And as far as GDP, I know Afghanistan is something like 110th on the world list, and Iraq must be, I don't know, somewhere in the 50s or 60s.
That's exactly right. And one telling thing is there was essentially not a banking system in Afghanistan. I mean, one of the things that the task force helped with was going in and counting the number of bank branches.
Is it true that the average person even mistrusts banks?
There's an absolute mistrust of banks. They tend to use these hawalas, which are essentially informal money transfer agents. So the idea that they would even put money in a bank was a foreign concept.
Now, Jason, I know you sat down with Paul Brinkley yesterday, and I just want to have our viewers be able to listen in to one of the comments that he said about, look, it's just business people trying to do business.
We've also learned how to work in these areas, businessman to businessman, and once you get past those initial concerns and you start working with the business community, most of us have international business experience in places like China and India and other parts of the world, and it's really no different.
All right, so he says no different there than doing business in China or India or some other emerging markets. But I mean, Afghanistan, as you alluded to, I mean, has at the very least a 30-year complicated history. The link with Mr. Brinkley is that the U.S. government would like to give the Afghani people sort of some incentive, right? Something to fight for that may be more like capitalism versus, I don't know, political or religious conflict, right?
That's exactly right. And it's a tough hill to climb. And there was this moment when I was there that seemed to sum a lot of it up. We were standing on this hill overlooking the city, and we're looking at a Marriott hotel under construction in the distance in Kabul. But where we were standing is a place where there was a Soviet swimming pool. It's called Swimming Pool Hill. The Soviets had built this swimming pool. The Taliban had used it to execute people. And now here we are standing there, and they're talking about developing. And it's going to be a Marriott. And there's a Marriott in the distance, and they're talking about developing something on that hill. That's Afghanistan. It's not easy, but it's a fascinating story to watch.
Yeah, Jason, glad you got to go, and thanks very much for bringing us the story. Jason's article is in this week's, as we mentioned, Bloomberg Businessweek.